He had been marked a traitor by his own kind. She was taken in the dead of night, bound, beaten, and stripped of everything she once was. Naya Riverbloom believed her story would end in chains until a renegade warrior made a choice no one dared before. Kaelen Wolfmark defied his tribe, his past, and every code of war to save a woman the world had already cast aside. Now they were being hunted across a brutal land, fighting not only to survive, but to prove that love could rise from the ashes of hate. This is a story of freedom sacrifice and the courage to stand as who you are, even when the world demands you bow. If you believe love is stronger than fear, say it aloud. I stand for freedom. The sun was merciless that day. Its glare scorched the open prairie, turning dust into gold and sweat into salt. Each breath Naya drew felt thick with grit. Her lips were dry and cracked. Her wrists rubbed raw beneath the tight leather straps, binding her to the back of an Apache warrior's horse. Every step she took behind it was agony. The blue dress she once wore now hung in shreds, torn and filthy, stained with blood dust and humiliation. Her hair, once neatly braided, clung in tangled strands to her face. The memories came in violent flashes, the ambush, the screams her family's wagon set ablaze. Her father, Elias Riverstone, falling beside the wheel. Her brother Talon calling her name before his voice vanished forever. Everything she knew was gone. Now she was a captive, nothing but a spoil of war. And Draven Blackfang, the Apache chief, had made that truth painfully clear. His words, though foreign, needed no translation. The way he gripped her chin, the cruel gleam in his eyes, the low growl of satisfaction, she understood it all. She belonged to him. From her knees, Naya spat in his face. The response was swift and brutal. A whip lashed across her back, tearing through her skin. Blood seeped through the fabric. She bit her tongue and refused to scream. Around her, the warriors rode in silence, their faces painted unreadable. Yet one man stood apart. He didn't stare at her with lust or triumph. His gaze was distant, shadowed. His skin bore the faded marks of another tribe. Kaelen Wolfmark rode slightly behind the rest posture, rigid, the look of someone who no longer belonged anywhere. His eyes, dark as obsidian and older than time, met hers only once. In that instant, something shifted inside her. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes carried sorrow. Not pity, not weakness, but a quiet, haunting grief, something that still lived within him. That night when the caravan stopped beside a dry creek, Naya was tied to a post near the horses. Her back throbbed, her throat burned, yet she refused to weep. She would not give them that pleasure. Smoke filled the air, heavy with the scent of sweat and fire. Drums thudded low and deep, the warriors chanting songs that echoed through the canyons. Then came footsteps, steady, deliberate. She braced herself. Draven Blackfang stepped into view, a coiled whip in his hand. His voice rumbled low, commanding laughter from the others. Naya lifted her chin. She would not beg. The whip cracked through the air. Pain exploded across her back. She gasped, not from the strike itself, but from the humiliation of it. Again the whip rose, then a voice sharp and low cut through the night. Enough. The camp froze. Draven turned, eyes narrowing, whip still poised in mid-air. Kaelen Wolfmark stood at the edge of the circle, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He spoke in Apache, his tone calm, dangerous, final. The silence stretched thick as smoke. After a long pause, Draven laughed a short, bitter sound. He dropped the whip into the dust and strode away. No one dared move. Kaelen didn't approach her, didn't speak. He only stood there, eyes fixed on the fire. But Naya saw the same defiance in his eyes that still burned inside her. Beneath the stars, chained and bloodied, something wordless passed between them, a spark fragile, yet fierce. She would never forget that night, the night a silent warrior refused to bow while she knelt in the dirt. The girl Naya Riverbloom hadn't made a sound since Draven Blackfang's whip had struck her back. Most captives broke after one lash, most cried, begged, but her scream wasn't surrender. It was defiance, raw and burning, a refusal to vanish quietly. Kaelen Wolfmark had seen that kind of strength before once, and it had cost him everything. He rose slowly, ignoring the wary glance of an Apache sharpening his blade by the fire. No one spoke to him. No one trusted him. He was Apache by blood, but not by loyalty, not anymore. After tonight, after standing against his chief, every eye would follow him. Let them. He walked toward her past the tethered horses, past the stinking hides and bones from the night's meal. She lay curled on her side, still bound, her hair matted to her cheek with sweat, her breath shallow. Yet her eyes were open, wild, fierce, alive. He crouched beside her in the dirt. For a long while neither spoke. "I won't beg," she whispered, her voice hoarse but steady. He tilted his head slightly. "I know." Her chest rose and fell in uneven rhythm. Blood streaked her face where she'd bitten her lip. Dirt caked her nails. Everything she had been was gone, reduced to this night, this man, this silence. Kaelen reached into the leather pouch at his side and pulled out a strip of dried meat and a battered canteen. She eyed them warily, like they might be poisoned. "Eat," he said simply. His English was rough, broken, but his intent was clear. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, disbelief flickering in her eyes. Then she opened her mouth, letting him press the tough meat against her lips. She chewed. He held the canteen to her mouth next. The water was warm, bitter, but she drank greedily, letting it run down her chin and soak her torn bodice. When she was done, she looked up. "Why?" He frowned. Why are you helping me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he unwrapped a small cloth bundle from his pouch, a mix of crushed herbs and pale salve. When he touched her shoulder, she flinched. But his hands were gentle as he dabbed the ointment across the open wounds on her back. "You're strong," he said quietly. "Don't break." Her breath caught. No one had ever said that to her before. Not her father, Elias Riverstone, who told her to stay quiet. Not anyone else who ever looked past her. She blinked away tears and gave a single nod. Kaelen stood glancing toward the shadows beyond the fire. Too many eyes. Too many questions. None of it mattered. What he had done tonight would mark him again not only as a traitor, but as a man who dared to show mercy. He turned and walked back to his place near the fire. Naya closed her eyes, and for the first time since the ambush, she felt it something fragile, trembling, almost forgotten. Hope. The next morning, the camp stirred beneath a sky brushed in gray and orange. Naya's muscles screamed, her skin raw, her throat dry as dust. Yet she sat upright now, watching every movement, every face. Kaelen was gone. Draven Blackfang passed without a glance, his men laughing as they dragged half-skinned animals across the clearing. One shoved a bowl near her feet, some kind of gruel or thin water. She didn't touch it. She waited. It wasn't until the heat shimmered off the ground at midday that she saw him ride back into camp, a rabbit hanging from his belt, a sack of roots slung across his saddle. He said nothing to anyone, tossed the game by the fire, and walked past her. When she looked down, she saw it hidden beneath the strip of meat in her bowl. A knife. Small. Dull. Concealed so carefully no one else would notice. Her heart leapt. She looked for him, but Kaelen had already moved away. Her fingers trembled as she tucked the blade beneath her skirt, pressing it against her thigh. Why was he doing this? Was it pity, a trap, or something else? That night, the camp celebrated. Someone had raided a trading post, and the Apache sang loud drunk on victory and stolen whiskey. Naya sat still, her face calm, though her pulse thundered. She watched the guards drift toward sleep, their laughter fading under the weight of the fire. Then just past midnight, with clouds smothering the moon, she heard it. A whisper. Naya. Her name. Her real name. She turned sharply toward the voice. Kaelen Wolfmark stood at the edge of the shadows, half hidden by a jagged rock. He lifted his hand, once sharp, urgent. This was the moment. Naya Riverbloom's fingers shook as she worked the dull knife beneath the cords at her wrists. The blade slipped, slicing her skin. But she didn't stop. Blood and sweat mingled, dripping into the dirt. At last, the bindings gave way. She rose slowly, careful not to draw a sound, and slipped into the darkness. He was there, his hand finding her arm, steadying her trembling. "We go now," he murmured. Where she whispered back. South River, then west. She nodded, and together they vanished into the night, leaving behind the drunken songs, the crackling fires, and a war chief whose fury would soon wake the desert. For now there was only the wind, the stars, and the rhythm of Ashen's hooves pounding across the open plain, each strike a heartbeat of freedom. They rode in silence for hours, pushing through darkness and dust. When they finally stopped at a stream, letting the horses drink, Naya turned to him, breathless. "You risked everything for me." He looked at her, his eyes catching the moonlight, haunted hard but alive. "No," he said, voice low. "I risked everything for myself." She frowned, not understanding. He hesitated, then said quietly, "You remind me of someone. My sister." Her chest tightened. What happened to her? He didn't answer, but the silence told her more than words could. They rode on through the endless night, the sound of the storm chasing them like a restless ghost. Behind them, a fire of vengeance burned that would not die soon. The sky split open with lightning illuminating the prairie like a battlefield. Thunder followed, rolling across the plains like a war drum. The wind howled, tearing through the grass, and the parched earth hissed as the first drops of rain fell. Mud churned beneath the horses' hooves. The scent of wet soil and iron filled the air. Kaelen's silhouette cut through the darkness ahead, each movement deliberate, sharp, unyielding. Naya clung to the saddle behind him, arms wrapped tight around his waist. Her fingers were numb, her body trembling from exhaustion and from the weight of everything that had happened. Every mile they gained felt stolen from death itself. She hadn't slept since the escape. Her thoughts spun like a storm screams fire, pain his eyes. Even now, with the wind raging around them, a strange stillness existed between them, not empty, not cold, but full of everything left unspoken. When Kaelen raised a hand, she understood. "Stop!" They halted beneath the twisted remains of a dead tree, its black branches reaching into the storm like claws. He jumped down, landing lightly in the mud. Naya followed, stumbling as her bare feet met the cold, wet ground. He led the horses behind a rock ridge, tying them in the shadows before returning to her side. "We stay here," he said, "until the storm passes." She nodded, hugging herself. Her dress clung to her body, soaked and torn. Her lips were pale, her skin raw. Without a word, he pulled a folded hide from his saddlebag and draped it over her shoulders. It smelled of smoke leather and something wild. She closed her eyes, drawing warmth from it. "Thank you," she whispered. He crouched near a patch of dry earth beneath the overhang and struck flint until a spark caught. A small fire flickered to life, weak but real. Naya crouched beside it, trembling, her hands extended toward the fragile flame. "I didn't think we'd make it," she said, voice brittle. He didn't look up. "We're not safe yet. You think they're following us?" "Yes," he said grimly. "Draven Blackfang, he'll come." She swallowed hard. "Because of me?" "No," he growled, jaw tight. "Because I took you." The wind screamed through the grass between them. "I'm sorry," she said, after a long pause, "for what happened to your sister." He stared into the fire eyes, distant. "She was 12, he said quietly. "Taken by white traders. My father found her by the river." His voice dropped lower. "I was 15. Naya's stomach twisted. She didn't know what to say. After a while, he added, almost to himself, "You remind me of her. The same fire in your eyes, the same fight." She looked into the small flame, her whisper barely rising above the wind. "I won't let it die." "I never wanted to fight, Naya," Riverbloom said quietly, her voice barely louder than the dying crackle of the fire. "I just didn't want to disappear." Kaelen Wolfmark turned his head, studying her face through the dim orange light. "You haven't?" he said simply. The storm above them raged like some ancient god's fury, lightning flashing across the plains, thunder rolling deep and hollow. They sat without speaking the fire, their only warmth in the wild, endless dark. Hours slipped by until the rain softened to a mist. The sky still trembled, but the worst had passed. Kaelen stood moving a few steps away, scanning the horizon. The muscles in his shoulders tensed beneath his wet shirt, his hand never straying far from the knife at his belt. "Why are you helping me?" Naya asked softly, though she already knew the answer. He didn't turn around. "Because I couldn't help her." The words hung between them like smoke, heavy, bitter real. When he finally turned back and crouched beside her again, something in his eyes had changed. The storm had stripped him bare. "You need rest," he said quietly. "I'll keep watch." She hesitated, but exhaustion won. Her whole body ached, every breath a reminder of what she'd survived. She lay down near the fire, wrapping herself tighter in the hide he'd given her. Her face turned toward the flickering light. Her eyelids fluttered. "Kaelen," she murmured, her voice fading into the night. He looked over. "If we survive this," she whispered. "What then?" His gaze didn't waver. "Then we choose," he said. She didn't ask what that meant. She didn't have to. Sleep claimed her. When Naya woke, dawn had broken pale and thin across the sky. The storm was gone. The plains stretched out wet and quiet, the air thick with the scent of rain, earth, and smoke. Kaelen sat crouched nearby, sharpening his blade in slow, steady strokes. He glanced up when she stirred. "We ride soon," he said. "We're south to the river." Then west, he replied. Into old Apache lands, far from their patrols. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Will they let you return?" He gave a small shrug. "I don't know. I have no tribe." She rose and walked toward him, her steps unsteady from the cold, and from something deeper she couldn't name. When she knelt beside him, her hands trembled slightly. "You do now," she said. He froze, meeting her eyes. For the first time since she'd known him, Kaelen Wolfmark smiled. A true, quiet smile. They rode again through the soaked grasslands, the horses' hooves splashing through puddles mud flying beneath Ashen's stride. Every rise of the land felt like a heartbeat, every sound a reminder of pursuit. But they were together, and they were moving forward. By the second day, the food was nearly gone. Kaelen hunted at dusk, returning with 2 rabbits. Naya helped clean them, her hands trembling but determined. They cooked over a small fire shielded by stones and brush. When night fell, they sat facing each other across the flames. "You were going to kill the guards back at the camp," she said quietly. "You didn't hesitate." He poked at the fire with a stick. "I have killed before. Does it ever get easier? No." She nodded once. "Good." He looked up, studying her. "You shot one when you escaped." "I know," she said softly. "It was my first time." "You feel guilt?" She paused. "No. I feel changed." He nodded slowly. "You did what you had to. That's war. Is that what this is?" she asked. "War." He looked toward the horizon, where the plains bled into darkness. "Not yet," he said. That night, Naya couldn't sleep. She lay beside the fire, watching the shadows shift and twist. The wind whispered through the grass like ghosts. Her thoughts refused to quiet the screams, the fire, the faces she'd lost. Kaelen sat upright near the fire, his knife resting across his knees, eyes never fully closing. She pushed herself up slightly. "Do you ever sleep?" "Sometimes," he said, his tone almost amused. "Will you tell me your real name?" she asked softly. He raised an eyebrow, the firelight catching the faint scar on his jaw, but he didn't answer. "Kaelen," she said softly, hesitating over the sound of his name. "I mean, your Apache name." He looked at her for a long moment, the firelight flickering across his face, before he finally answered. Voice low. "He who walks alone." She tilted her head. "That's fitting?" He shook his head. "No. It was given as punishment." Her brow furrowed. What was it before his gaze drifted toward the flames? Wind that follows. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Naya Riverbloom whispered, "I like that one better." He didn't reply, only said softly, "You should rest." She nodded, but didn't lie down. Instead, she rose quietly, crossed the short distance between them, and sat beside him. Their shoulders brushed barely, but neither moved away. The warmth between them was no longer just from the fire. They were fugitives, hunted souls in a world ruled by blood and dust. Yet beneath the wide sky, heavy with the last storm clouds and fading stars, Naya leaned her head against Kaelen Wolfmark's shoulder. He didn't flinch. They stayed that way until dawn. The land grew harsher as they rode west. The wide grasslands gave way to hard soil and jagged stone. The sky stretched endlessly, a pitiless dome of blue, offering neither shade nor mercy. The sun returned with a vengeance, beating down until their skin burned and their mouths turned dry. Dust swirled around the horses' hooves, rising like smoke on a battlefield. Naya's body had adapted to the rhythm of flight, aching muscles, raw skin hunger gnawing at her insides, but her mind carried heavier scars. Some nights she woke gasping, haunted by the crackle of fire and the echo of screams. Other nights she dreamed of home, her mother humming by the stove, Talon Riverstone chasing her through the wheat, and then woke to find none of it left but ghosts. Kaelen never asked about her nightmares. He simply watched in silence, always alert, knife within reach, eyes sharp as a hawk's. His words were few but steady, measured like his breath, heavy with meaning. They found the ruined mission just past dusk on the 5th night. The old chapel rose from the earth like a skeleton, its stone walls fractured, its wooden cross long fallen. The wind moaned through the broken beams and shattered door, carrying the scent of dust and forgotten prayers. This place. Safe, Naya asked, her voice hoarse. Kaelen dismounted and scanned the horizon before nodding. For now. They led Ashen and the other horse into the overgrown courtyard, tying them beneath the limbs of a dead fig tree. When Naya tried to step down, her knees gave way. He caught her around the waist before she fell. For a brief moment their eyes locked. His hand stayed at her hip, steadying her. Her breath hitched, the space between them filled with more than just exhaustion. "You're tired," he said. "I'm fine," she lied. He didn't argue, just guided her inside the remains of the chapel, where moonlight spilled through the roof in silver streaks. They sat with their backs against the cold stone wall, sharing the last of the dried meat and the bitter creek water. After they ate, Kaelen opened his saddlebag. Inside, wrapped in cloth, were a few bullets, 5 no more. "Only 5 left," he muttered. Naya turned toward him. "We're still being hunted." He nodded. "Not just Draven Blackfang now, others too." "Who?" He hesitated before saying Rafe Hollowstone. The name meant nothing to her at first, but something in the way he said it, flat and certain, made her stomach twist. "Who is he?" she asked. "A bounty hunter," Kaelen said. "White man. Settlers pay him to track what's lost goods people." Her pulse quickened. "Then someone paid him to bring me back." He shook his head. "Not back. Just dead or alive." The words hit her like a blow. She stared into the crumbling doorway, breath shallow. "And he'll kill you too." "Yes." She turned toward him, desperation raw in her voice. "Then we run. We keep running." "We can't run forever," he said. Her throat tightened. "Then what?" He met her gaze, calm but unyielding. "Then we stop running and fight." Unflinching Kaelen Wolfmark met her gaze. "Then we fight." Naya Riverbloom wanted to argue, to scream that she wasn't made for fighting, that she was just a girl who had lost everything. But the truth pressed hard against her ribs. She had already pulled a trigger once. She had already killed to stay alive. Whoever she used to be was gone. "Then teach me," she said quietly. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Teach you to fight. To shoot." "If I have to face him," she said, voice trembling, but steady, "I won't die afraid." "Die." He studied her for a long moment, the firelight flickering in his dark eyes. Then he gave a single nod. "Tomorrow." That night they slept close to their weapons, curled near the flickering fire in the ruined chapel. The silence felt unnatural too, still too heavy, as if the whole world was holding its breath. Naya barely slept at all. When dawn broke, Kaelen led her outside. The horizon glowed with streaks of purple and gold. He placed his rifle into her hands, adjusting her grip gently, silently. His touch was firm, grounding. "Here," he said, pointing to a shattered piece of pottery balanced on a rock several yards away. "Aim." She lifted the rifle. It felt heavy, awkward in her hands. Her arms trembled. He stepped behind her, his voice low and calm. "Breathe. Don't rush." She exhaled, squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked, echoing across the barren hills. She missed. Again, he said simply. She reloaded, fired, missed again. Focus, he murmured. Don't think. Feel. Her next shot cracked through the air and struck the pottery dead on, shattering it to dust. She gasped. Kaelen didn't smile. Good, he said quietly. They trained for hours beneath the blazing sun. By mid-afternoon, Naya's shoulders ached. Her arms trembled, and her fingertips were rubbed raw. But inside her, something had changed. She wasn't a soldier, but she wasn't prey anymore either. Back in the chapel, they rested in the shade, sharing what little food remained. Naya leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes, when a faint sound drifted through the silence. A bell. Once. Then again. Kaelen was on his feet, instantly, head snapping toward the sound. His jaw tightened. "What is it?" Naya asked, heart pounding. "Rafe Hollowstone," he said. "How do you know that bell hasn't rung in years? Someone used it to draw us out." He grabbed his rifle and checked the bullets. "We move, now." But before they could gather their things, a voice echoed from beyond the chapel wall. "Not so fast." Naya froze. A man stepped into the light, tall, broad-shouldered, his long coat gray with travel dust. His beard was patchy, his eyes sharp and cold as ice. Behind him, 4 men fanned out with rifles raised. Rafe Hollowstone. Kaelen shoved Naya behind him, knife in one hand, rifle in the other. "You ride with a killer girl Rafe called Voice slick as oil. You know what they call him, traitor. Butcher, the one who walks alone. Leave us." Kaelen said, his tone flat and hard as stone. Rafe smirked. "Afraid I can't do that. There's a bounty on both your heads. Double if I bring the girl back breathing." He tipped his hat toward Naya. "No offense, darling. Nothing personal." She stepped from behind Kaelen, hands shaking. "You'll have to kill me first." Rafe laughed darkly. "That can be arranged." Before another word passed, Kaelen lifted his rifle and fired. One of Rafe's men dropped screaming. Chaos exploded. Gunfire ripped through the air bullets, slamming into the chapel's stone walls. Dust burst into clouds. Naya dove behind a pillar, snatching up the spare weapon Kaelen had given her, her heart hammering her pulse, roaring like thunder. Naya Riverbloom ducked behind a fallen beam as gunfire split the air. Kaelen Wolfmark moved like a storm-fast fluid, deadly firing, rolling, taking cover. But there were too many of them. When she saw one of Rafe Hollowstone's men circling wide, she rose, aimed, and squeezed the trigger. The recoil jolted her shoulder. The man cried out, clutching his arm before collapsing into the dust. Kaelen saw the opening. With a roar, he charged straight for Rafe knife, flashing in the sun. The two collided hard, crashing into the dirt, grappling like wild beasts. Naya fired again, the bullet sparking off stone. Rafe slammed Kaelen's head into the ground, once, twice. The sound made her scream. She ran forward, grabbed a jagged rock, and smashed it into Rafe's back. He spun on her, fury blazing, and shoved her hard. She hit the ground, dazed, the world spinning. Kaelen bellowed in rage, slicing his knife across Rafe's thigh. Blood sprayed across the dust. The bounty hunter stumbled backward, firing blindly as he retreated. 2 of his men lay dead. The remaining pair dragged Rafe away, disappearing into the hills. Kaelen stood for a moment, breathing hard, blood streaming down his forehead. Then his knees buckled. He hit the ground beside her. Kaelen Naya crawled to him, pulling his head into her lap. His face was pale beneath the dirt, eyes glassy with pain. When she touched his leg, he cried out. A bullet had torn through his thigh. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No, stay with me." "Stay with—" He blinked, struggling to focus on her. You saved me, he rasped. So we're even now, she whispered, tears streaking her face. Don't you dare leave me. With trembling hands, she dragged him back inside the chapel. Her heart pounded as she searched the pack's cloth, herbs, anything to stop the bleeding. She worked fast, doing what he'd taught her, pressing tight wrappings around the wound. When she found a needle and thread, she stitched it, closed her hands, shaking the whole time. He groaned, but didn't cry out. Night fell heavy over the ruins. Naya sat beside him, refusing to rest. His fever rose fast, his skin hot, his breath shallow. Once he gripped her hand and murmured a name not hers. She leaned close and kissed his forehead. I'm here, she whispered. I'm right here. The fire burned low. Shadows pressed close. She kept watch with the rifle in her lap, eyes fixed on the broken doorway, ready for whatever came. They weren't running anymore. They were surviving together. By morning, the air was thick with the smell of smoke and blood. Ash drifted like ghostly snow across the ruins, clinging to the stones, to Naya's tangled hair, to the torn fabric of Kaelen's tunic. The first light of dawn slipped through the broken arches, painting everything gold and gray. The only sound was the rasp of Kaelen's breathing and the faint hiss of dying embers. Naya hadn't slept. Every sound in the dark, the cry of a fox, the whisper of wings, the groan of the wind had kept her on edge. Her eyes never left the doorway. The rifle stayed tight in her hands. Dried blood stained her fingers. When Kaelen stirred, pain twisted through his body. He groaned, jaw tightening as he tried to move. She dropped the gun and rushed to his side. His skin burned beneath her touch, sweat slicking his face. The bleeding had slowed, but the fever had him now. I'm here, she whispered, brushing his hair back. I've got you. He blinked eyes, unfocused. Where? The mission, she said softly. You're safe. They're gone. Rafe ran. He tried to sit up, but a sharp cry escaped him. His hand gripped hers, still strong, even in weakness. You? Alive. She nodded. You saved me. Now it's my turn. He tried to smile, but it twisted into pain. Water. She lifted the canteen to his lips. He drank greedily, breath shuddering before collapsing back. You're burning up, she murmured. I need to find herbs, something to bring the fever down. His fingers caught her wrist. No. Don't go far. I won't, she promised. But I have to try. He gave a faint nod and let his eyes close. Naya stood, exhaustion pulling at every bone, every muscle, but she wouldn't stop. Not while there was still breath in him. Naya Riverbloom hadn't eaten since the night before the fight, her stomach twisting with hunger, but she pushed the pangs aside. She tucked the knife into her belt, slung the rifle over her shoulder, and stepped into the crisp morning air. No sign of Rafe Hollowstone's men. Their tracks led southeast toward the hills fading into the wilderness. She had no way of knowing how many still lived or when they might return. But they had struck a blow, and Rafe had bled. That was enough to spark hope. Naya scavenged what she could, bitter leaves from a bush Kaelen Wolfmark had shown her, moss from the creek side, a trail she remembered from one of his patrols. Swiftly, she returned to the chapel, each step haunted by echoes of gunfire and screams. Inside, Kaelen hadn't moved. She crushed the herbs, mixed them with water, and soaked a strip of cloth to lay across his forehead. Sitting beside him, she whispered encouragements as his body trembled, holding his hand while heat waves convulsed through him. Hours blurred together. Sometimes he muttered in Apache words she couldn't understand. Other times names Suni Brightleaf, his sister, and others unfamiliar. Once he reached blindly for a phantom knife striking at shadows only he could see. By nightfall, she coaxed him to drink, forcing each sip past his lips. She slept in fragments, moments stolen, waking with a jolt each time. On the third day, the fever broke quietly just before dawn. His breathing steadied. When Naya touched his face, it was warm, no longer scorching. She wept silently, head pressed to his chest. Later that morning, he opened his eyes. "You stayed," he whispered, voice ragged. "Of course I stayed," she said, smiling through tears. His gaze fell on the bandages around his leg, the remnants of the fire, the empty bowl at his side. "You did all this," he rasped. "I told you it's my turn now. You're stronger than you think," she said. "So are you," he replied. Day by day, he grew first, sitting, then standing, leaning on her shoulder. She gathered firewood, hunted small game, boiled the little water they could find, watching over him as he had once watched over her. Though their words were few, the silence no longer carried fear. It carried something fragile, quietly growing. One afternoon, while she cleaned the wound on his leg, he reached for her hand. "Naya," he murmured. She looked up, startled. "I meant what I said," he continued. "Back at the chapel, I would die to keep you free." She paused, voice low. "Don't you see, you already lived?" "That's the harder part." He studied her thumb, brushing over her knuckles. "You could still leave," he said. "Go back east. Find what remains." She shook her head. "There's nothing left for me there. Everything I knew, everything I was. It ended the day they took me. I'm not who I was." "I don't want you to be," he said, nodding. "Then, who are you now?" She didn't answer, but her hand tightened around his. A week after the attack, Kaelen was strong enough to walk short distances using a carved stick as a cane. The chapel had become a place of refuge, sacred in its own way, but they both knew it couldn't last. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in red and gold, Naya climbed the broken bell tower and scanned the horizon. Movement. 3 riders distant, deliberate. She descended quickly. "We have to go." Kaelen was already packing their few belongings. "They found us," she said. "No," he replied. "But they will soon." His gaze met hers. "We head for the river. There's a cave near the bank." "I know it. We can rest there, hide if needed," she nodded. As dusk fell, they rode stars emerging overhead. 2 shadows gliding through the wild. His legs slowed him, but he never complained. Naya rode close eyes, vigilant. One hand always on her rifle. By sunrise, they reached the river. The cave lay hidden behind a curtain of trees and rocks, invisible unless you knew the path. Inside, it was cool and dry. They lit no fire that night, only whispers moved between them. As rain tapped softly against the earth outside Naya Riverbloom, huddled beside Kaelen Wolfmark in the darkness. The scent of wet soil and stone filled the cave. The river murmured endlessly nearby. "You've changed," she said softly. "So have you," he replied. Her eyes searched his in the dim light, tracing the lines of his face, the shadows under his jaw. "Do you regret it? Taking me?" He shook his head. "No, I only regret not doing it sooner." Her hand moved to his chest over the steady beat of his heart. "You're not the man they say you are, not the savage, not the traitor, and I'm not the girl they tried to break. They made us ghosts," he whispered, leaning closer. "Then let's be who we choose, not who they made us." Their lips met, not desperate, not hungry, but slow, aching, a touch forged from shared pain, fear, and survival. The kiss spoke of a future not yet written. When they parted, she whispered, "I'm not afraid anymore." "Neither am I," he said softly. Outside, the river hummed its endless song, carrying away the remnants of who they had been. Beneath the shelter of stone and earth, something new began. They rose with the first pale shimmer of dawn, the river's cool breath brushing against their skin. Mist floated above the water like drifting memories. Naya stood at the cave entrance, barefoot in the damp grass, wrapped in a worn blanket. Her hair clung damply to her back from the morning fog. She watched the river twist and coil, ever moving forward, never backward. Kaelen worked behind her, gathering their sparse belongings. "This cave has kept us safe," he said quietly. "But our time here is up." "We leave today?" she asked, pulling the blanket tighter. He tightened the saddle straps on Ashen, careful, deliberate. "Northwest into Apache lands. There's a village old allies of my father. Maybe they remember him. And if they don't? Then we keep moving," he said, eyes meeting hers, "until we find a place where they don't see you as a ghost, or me as a traitor." "I don't care where it is," she said, voice steady. "As long as I'm not running alone." "You're not," he said. "Not anymore." They mounted as the sun rose, golden light streaming through the trees. The river followed them like a loyal companion, birds flitting through the canopy above. For a time it felt possible that the worst had passed, that freedom might truly exist, not as the absence of danger, but as the presence of something worth holding on to. By midday, they crested a ridge overlooking the plains. The wind whipped through the tall grass in relentless waves. Kaelen dismounted, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. Naya followed, sliding from her saddle. "What is it?" she asked, brushing wet hair from her face. He said nothing at first, eyes narrowing. "Riders," he said finally. "2, maybe 3, following our trail." Naya's heart clenched. "Could be Rafe Hollowstone," she said, glancing back along their path. "Nothing yet." "Open land offers no hiding," he said. "We don't stop. If they were caught in the flats, escape would be impossible." They pushed Ashen hard, riding faster, urgency unspoken, but alive in every stride, every glance. The land grew rougher near the base of the hills. Trees thickened air heavy with vine and damp earth. They passed dry creek beds, broken fences, and the crumbling remains of a settler's cabin consumed by time. When night fell, they didn't light a fire. They sheltered among the trees, listening. Coyotes howled in the distance. Branches rustled, hooves echoed faintly behind them. "They're still behind us," Naya whispered. "Close," Kaelen murmured, drawing her close beneath the stars. "Then let them come," he said, arm wrapped around her. They did. Not long after dawn, gunfire shattered the morning quiet. A bullet struck a tree beside Naya's head. Wood splintered as a shot tore through the fallen beam. Naya Riverbloom ducked instinctively, rolling to the side as Kaelen Wolfmark shouted her name. From the tree line behind them, 3 riders surged forward, rifles raised. Rafe Hollowstone led the charge coat, flapping like a war banner. A fresh scar marred his face from their last encounter. "Naya!" he bellowed. "That Apache dog got you brainwashed, he's going to die." "So are you," Kaelen growled, already moving. He shoved Naya behind a boulder and fired. One rider went down screaming as he tumbled from his horse. The others scattered, regrouping quickly. "You know what I think," Girl Rafe shouted. "I think you like being his little savage. You think he cares about you. He's using you same as his kind always has." Another shot cracked through the trees. Naya lifted the rifle Kaelen had taught her to use, steadying her breath. She spotted the glint of Rafe's revolver and fired. The bullet missed by inches enough to make him pull back. Kaelen seized the opening, firing again, hitting the second rider in the shoulder. Blood sprayed. Rafe cursed and vanished into the trees. Silence fell. Birds returned to the morning chorus. They waited, rifles ready, breaths tight, but the enemy didn't return. "Are they gone?" Naya whispered. "No," Kaelen said. "They're circling." He pulled her to her feet. "We move." They scrambled through the thick forest, weaving between trunks and underbrush, climbing higher into the hills. The trail vanished beneath leaves and roots. Occasionally, a snap of a branch told them Rafe Hollowstone was close. Naya's legs burned. Her lungs ached. Teeth gritted, she pushed forward. By nightfall, they reached a ridge with a sheer drop on one side. "A narrow path?" she asked, peering over the ledge. "No choice," Kaelen replied. Step by careful step, they moved along the edge, each misstep deadly. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Then a voice cut across the cliffs. "You run like rabbits, but the dogs are still on your heels. You think he'll save you, girl. He can't even save himself." Rafe's words echoed. Naya stopped, turned. Her voice rang clear into the dusk. "I don't need saving. Not anymore." A shot rang out. Kaelen dragged her down just in time. The bullet missed by inches. He rose, rifle raised, and fired twice in rapid succession. One scream, then silence. No more taunts, no more footsteps. Only wind and stone. By midnight, they reached the top of the ridge, exhausted and silent. Stars stretched across the sky like a frozen sea. Kaelen collapsed beside a tree, panting, blood staining his side from a grazing shot. Naya knelt beside him, tearing cloth from her tunic to press against the wound. "You should have let me kill him," she said through clenched teeth. "Not yet," he murmured. They stayed there until dawn. When the sun broke, light revealed the valley beyond a small, quiet village, nestled in a shallow hollow, framed by forest and stone. Smoke curled from huts. Horses grazed freely. Children darted between the trees. Kaelen's breath caught. "Apache," he whispered. "You're sure?" Naya asked. He nodded slowly. "I know the markings, the totems. My mother spoke of this place." They descended into the valley. Some villagers spotted them and scattered. At the village's edge, a half-circle of warriors waited, bows drawn, spears steady. An elder stepped forward, lined face, sharp eyes piercing. Kaelen dismounted, favoring his injured leg, and raised a hand. "I am Kaelen Wolfmark," he said, in Apache, son of Hokan Ironclaw. "I come in peace." The elder's eyes narrowed. "You walk with a white woman. I walk with my equal," he replied. The warriors shifted, but held their weapons. The elder asked again, "Why are you here?" "To ask for what was once given." "Sanctuary." Silence followed. Then Naya stepped forward, voice shaking but firm. In the Apache he had taught her, she said, "I was taken. I was not broken. He saved me. I choose to walk with him." The elder studied her, then looked to Kaelen. "Your father was a good man, but you bear the name of shame." "I carry it no longer," Kaelen said. "I have earned a new one." The elder stepped forward, placing a hand over his heart. "Come. Let the people judge not by name, but by truth." They were allowed to pass. That night, beneath the stars, Naya Riverbloom and Kaelen Wolfmark sat beside a new fire, inside a new home. The village accepted them slowly, cautiously, but it accepted them. In the quiet, Naya placed a hand on her stomach. A new life was growing. She looked to Kaelen. He met her gaze. No words were needed. The future once stolen now belonged to them. They hadn't just survived, they had rebuilt. A life, a love born from courage, sacrifice, and the choice to stand together in a world that tried to tear them apart.